Hello everyone, welcome back to another new video on PS4 Linux. So a few hours ago, the PS3 ITA team released PSZTouch version 3 distro for the PS4. In this video, we're going to talk about the distro in detail. I'm going to show you the new apps that have been added, including the Tearfree config, Vulkan config, XOR config, and many others. We're also going to look into the new gaming performance on this distro, especially given that it comes with Mesa 22.2, the development version. And there's a little backstory to how PSZTouch version 3 came to be, especially given that PSZTouch version 2 was released a few years ago. You can read all about it on my blog, and I have already provided a link to the article in the description. And as for the installation process, it's the same as the earlier ones. You can use both the initramfs rescue shell method, or you can use the alternate faster method, both of which I have talked about earlier in the blog itself. And for the alternate faster method, I also have a video tutorial showing you how you could do that. So you could follow that too. It depends on you. Okay. So I've already installed PSZTouch version 3 to my SSD. Now all that's left is loading PSZTouch version 3. So I'm going to do that. So for this, I'm going to be using my new exploit host, which I talked about in my last video. Actually, I've also shared the script so that you could host your own exploit hosts with your own payloads. And I'm going to go into the Linux section right here. As you can see, there are multiple payloads for Linux. If you are on a PS4 Pro, make sure that you use these payloads. Any of these four payloads that you see, these are specifically for PS4 Pro and are known to double the performance on your PS4 Pro. And this again is a courtesy of the PS3 ITA team. But since I have a slim Baikal for now, I'm gonna depend on these older payloads because the PS4 Pro payloads don't work for me currently. So I'm gonna depend on these payloads. And since I have already installed it, I'm gonna go with the 2 GB VRAM payload. If you're installing it for the first time and you're gonna use the PS4 initramfs rescue shell method, then make sure that you're using the 1 GB VRAM payload for that. Only for the installation step. After that, you can reboot to Orbis and then go for any other payloads. For this tutorial, I'm going to depend on the 2 GB VRAM payload. So I'm going to press on that and boot into PSZTouch version 3. So as you can see, it would most probably end up in a black screen like this. Once you reach this step, what you have to do is very simple. First of all, you're going to remove the HDMI cable. It could be either from your PS4's end or on the display's end. It doesn't matter. And then I'm going to replug it. Okay. And then I'm going to use my keyboard to type Alt Control F2. So this will drop me into the shell. So from here, all I have to do is again type Alt Control F1 this time. Okay, you will have to try multiple of these combinations sometimes. You might have to go for something like Alt F11 and Alt F12 without the control, that is. Or you could also try Alt F1 and Alt F2, all of these which have been recommended by the PS3 ITA team. But I have seen that Alt Control F2 and F1 work for me most of the time. Okay, so I'm within the OS right now. As you can see, there is no login this time around because the automatic login has been activated by default. So voila, this is PSZTouch version 3 for you guys. Okay, so this is the desktop and this is what it looks like. So first of all, while beginning the video, I'm gonna check the RAM consumption because PS3 ITA team says that this is a very lightweight distro that uses less than 370 MB of RAM while running idle. So let's check that first. So I'm going to go into the system and then check out HTOP, which will show me how much of memory it is using. Wow, they were right about it because it is using roughly 326 MB out of the 5.85 GB of RAM that is available. And I've also made sure that there is a swap, and I've made about 6 GB of swap available for this distro. This is very important when it comes to gaming. You'll see that with a swap, there are lesser crashes and the games perform better than without a swap. The instructions to set up swap have been given in the description link. Do check that out. Okay. Next, we're going to see the Mesa version. For that, I'm going to open up a terminal by going here. Okay. And then I'm going to type Vulkan info and then a space and then this icon separator, I guess, and then less, and this will show me some information regarding the Mesa version and stuff. So I'm gonna scroll down quickly and as you can see, it is Mesa 22.2.0, the development version. I would like to quickly credit Zerobow for this effort. He was the person who went commit by commit trying to find the faulty commit in the Mesa Git tree that caused issues with Mesa 21.0.4 and above. on especially the versions that were available for PS4 Pro. So he was able to find a commit that actually made this possible, that is Mesa 22.2.0 possible. You can find his work on the PS4 Linux forums. I'll share a link to that. He has also made Mesa 22.2.0 versions available for other distros, including Fedora. You could also try those. So a huge thanks to him for that. Now we're going to talk about the next great feature that has been added by default into this distro, that is screenshotting. Once you press Alt and F6 on your keyboard, it says that it will automatically screenshot it. As you can see, I just took a screenshot right now, and these will be saved to the folder screenshots within the home folder. Let us just quickly check if it has been there. Yep. Here we have a folder called screenshot, and here we have the screenshot that we just took. Next, we're going to talk about the apps that have been integrated by default into this distro. Some of them are the older ones that have existed a long time ago itself, and some are new ones which are very useful, especially for gaming. So we're going to talk about them one by one. Okay, so the first one I'm going to talk about is the LED color changer. To access that, go to the application menu and then go to system, and then you'll find it right here, that is change LED color. So there are multiple options available here. As you can see, orange plus blue is default on most kernels. So I'm not sure, but for me it has always been blue that has been default on most kernels. And let us quickly see how this works. I'm gonna choose orange plus white and then press OK. And do you want to make it permanent? This is what it asks as soon as you set your favorite color. So if you were to say yes to it, each time you reboot into Linux, you will find that the PS4 LED, the power button LED, will default to the one that you have set. Okay, so I'm not going to make it permanent for now. I'm going to press on no for now, and it says bye. Okay, that was all that we had to do. So on some kernels you will find that this does not work properly, but on many other kernels it does work properly. But it's a fun thing to test on your PS4. Have fun with it, okay? So the next app that I found pretty useful in this distro is the Vulkan config app. You can access that by going into the application menu, system, and then choosing Vulkan config. As you can see, it has two compilers right here, ACO and LLVM. ACO is the default compiler on most Mesa versions, and LLVM is also another compiler that can be used if, say, a game does not work properly on ACO. You could switch back to LLVM. So what this app does is that it makes it easier to switch between ACO and LLVM. So if you were to choose LLVM right here and then press OK, it would switch to LLVM for the whole system. It is not app specific. It will set LLVM as the default compiler for the whole system. Let me show you how this works quickly. I'm gonna go here and then I'm gonna choose terminal emulator. Okay. Now I've pasted this code right here, which is going to tell me what driver is being used and what the FPS is. This is kind of like Mango Hut, but uses a Mesa VK layer. Okay, so I'm going to type VK Cube right here to see what driver and compiler it is using. As you can see, it already says LLVM right here, and it is also being shown right here. So what this particular app, that is a Vulkan config, does is that it sets the default compiler for the whole system. So it doesn't matter if you run a particular game or something else from the terminal or from Steam or anywhere else, it will by default use the LLVM compiler instead of the default ACO compiler. You get the idea, right? Now let us try quickly changing back to the ACO compiler by default. I'm gonna go into the Vulkan config, and then I'm gonna switch back to ACO, and then I'm gonna click on OK, and I'll also have to close this terminal and go back to this terminal again. And then I'm going to try typing VKCube again to see if there's a change in the compiler. As you can see, it does not say LLVM. It means that it has automatically defaulted back to ACO, which is the default compiler in most recent Mesa versions, as I've already said. Okay. So this is something that you can do if you want to set a particular compiler as default for the whole system. But let's say if you want a particular compiler for a particular app and another particular compiler for another particular app, then what should you do? That's pretty simple. If you want to set a default compiler per app basis, what you have to do is just type a radv_debug is equal to LLVM, and then let's try typing this particular code again to see what it does. Okay, I'm gonna quickly paste it right here. As you can see, it uses LLVM, but let me show you quickly what the Vulkan config says. The Vulkan config is still using ACO, but since we ran it with this code, that is radv_debug is equal to LLVM, it uses LLVM only for this particular command, that is this particular run of VKCube. If you were to close this and then try running VK Cube on another terminal, you will see that it will default back to ACO. So I'm going to close it quickly right here, and then let's move on to the next wonderful app that has been added to this distro by default, and that is PS4 Fan Control. I don't think this one needs any introduction because I've already shown you how you could get PS4 Fan Control working on any distro of your choice in my earlier video, so we're not going to talk about it. And the same options apply here. There is the option to set the temperature, and if you were to save it, this will be saved for the next run. So the next time you run the PS Zeta Arch version 3, it would look for this particular temperature that you have set right here, and it would default to it automatically. Okay, so I'm going to close that right here. And another useful app that has been added this time around is a keyboard layout app that will help you set any language of your liking right here, so the whole system would default to that language from the next time onwards. Okay, now coming back to gaming, we also have the Tear-Free Config app, which can be accessed from the system, and then by going into Tear-Free Configure, it has 4 options. So right now Tear-Free is always enabled. This means that any app or game that you run will have Tear-Free running in the background. So what does Tear-Free do? Tear-Free, as the name suggests, obviously is an app that makes sure that screen tearing does not occur or reduces it to a minimum. We will put this to test soon with the game control running. With this particular app from PS3 ITA, you can set your options, whether you want tear-free running always, or it should be off by default, or if your system has screen tearing from time to time only and you don't notice it very often, you could set the auto option. You could play with it to know more about it. Okay, those were some of the interesting apps that have been loaded by default this time around. And now we're gonna get to the serious part, that is gaming. Okay, how is the gaming experience on this new distro? Let's check it out with 2 games, that is Control, and then I'm also gonna test Portal 2. Both of these games have been earlier tested by me on my earlier distros, that is Nobara 36 and WineSap OS. So we're gonna test the performance, that is compare the performance with this distro. But before we begin, keep in mind that those tests were running on the earlier versions of Nisa and also on the earlier versions of Proton. Enough information, let's just get to gaming. Okay, so I've got Steam right now here. Actually, this is not the interface that most of you are aware of. So this is a small mode available on Steam. Actually, the PS3 ITA team suggests that you use this mode instead of the large mode right here. You can shift between these 2 modes by going into view and changing into large mode or small mode. While the Steam interface is using lesser RAM, more is available for the game, and thus the game's performance would be better. So I would suggest that you use this mode, that is the small mode, okay, instead of the large mode. And that's it. Now I'm gonna straight away go to Portal and load it. All I have to do is double click it and it will start running. And yep, here we have gone full screen. I'm gonna play it for a few minutes to just give you an idea how good the performance is. And I'll also link the earlier video that I've done while playing this game, so that you could also compare it with the earlier video, the earlier distros and the earlier versions of Nisa. Okay. So as you can see, the game has been giving me a constant 60 FPS, but I do notice some kind of screen tearing. Maybe the settings that I've used are not proper, I'm not sure. I'll have to do more testing on this game. But for now, this is it. Alright. So now we're gonna move on to the next game that actually uses Vulkan, okay? That is Control. It is an awesome game.
Your test environment is unsupervised.
So here I have Control on my Heroic Games launcher. I'm gonna go and make sure that F-Sync is not enabled. In the last video that I did, I found that enabling F-Sync did not go well with this game. So I'm gonna make sure that the settings are more or less similar to the earlier video in which I tried Control on Nobara 36. So all of these other settings are the same. Let's just leave it right there. Even though the settings are the same, as I've already said, the Mesa version is now updated and it also uses a new version of Proton. So I'm expecting better gaming this time. So let's try Control on PS Vita version 3 right now, okay? The last time around when we tested this game, Mango HUD was not working with Heroic Games Launcher for Control somehow. I don't know what the issue was, but this time around it is working, so it would give you a better idea of the FPS that you can expect with this game, okay? Now before we begin the game, let me quickly show you the display settings that I have used. I have set the quality preset at low and the resolution is full HD, and the render resolution has been reduced to 720p. If you set it to 1080p, you would not find the game playable. That's what I found anyways, but you could try it on your PS4 Pro. Maybe you will get better performance out of it. Anyways, I'm gonna go back to the main menu and continue the game. In my earlier testing of Control on Nobara 36, one of the main issues that I had with this game was the screen tearing. But with Tear Free right now working, I'm expecting better performance. Let's see. Okay, so here is the intro and the cutscene and stuff. This is obviously gonna go at 200 plus FPS, no doubt. But I think I'm seeing lesser screen tearing than the last time around. I'm not sure if it's just my imagination, but I feel that there is lesser screen tearing. We'll be able to confirm it when we actually get into gameplay. So I'm gonna skip this intro and cutscene, okay? Skip. Again, skip. Now let's try running a bit, okay? Oh, wow. I do notice significantly less screen tearing this time around. Yes, there are certain portions. Yep, as you can see, there are certain portions where there is screen tearing, but it is pretty low compared to what I had the during the last try with Nobara 36. So tear free seems to do a good job. I'm not sure if it's just the tear free config that is doing its job, or if the Mesa version and the Proton version all have a role to play in this.
Hey, excuse me.
We're here about the job. Janitor's assistant. You need to go that way.
Elevator that way. Got it.
Ulver, you can say I sent you. If they don't,
I've done enough night shift loner jobs to know it makes us come off weird. Ahti the janitor is a friendly face in my book. The cell and the poster. I was 11 years old the first time I saw behind the poster. They told me I imagined it. I've been trying to pull it down ever since. Will you help? lose you there for a moment? You know what's on my mind. My baby brother, Dylan. 17 years since the men of this bureau took him. Shit. Shit. You want me to pick it up? The murder weapon? Really? Oh, look at this place. Where am I? The same gun. Okay, now I have a gun.
I guess the gameplay was good, especially the combat portions, but I did notice some buggy stutters while in the combat session. You can compare this gameplay with the earlier gameplay. I will provide a link to that video in the description. You could make a decision on your own, but I do feel that Control is better with PS Touch version 3's changes. Okay, so that was a quick overview of PS Touch version 3. I do have a link in the description that will lead you to the download link and the installation instructions and more details on this distro. You could also check that out. Okay, if you did like this video, make sure you click on that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, click on that bell button if you want the updates as fast as possible. Also, if you can donate, you can also find the donation link in the description. Go donate and make a few more projects on PS4 Linux possible for me. Okay, and you obviously. I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye guys.